it a?
My husband works in the ferry, so
Let's finish the round.
Yeah, let's go down.
Let's hear the main points each person has, and then we can discuss them.
So I think it's more a perception problem than a real problem. We had somebody check the ferry for about a week and a half. There was never an overload during that time except the day after the long weekend. And we all know that the silly season is coming, and there's all bets are off in terms of when we wait and when we don't wait, and it applies equally to us as it does to Hornby, because a lot of those people are coming with their trailers or campers or whatever, and they're taking up a lot of space on the ferry. So we don't get on. Sometime we're sitting at the top of the hill and we're waiting just like everybody else. The other thing I want to say is that I did send something out the other day, and I thought, here's a way if there's a person with a real problem that has a medical or another kind of appointment that's really critical, let's help them get on. Two people said it was not a very good idea, and for various reasons. And there was never ever any implication in what I said that was meant to say that it was a problem that Hornby could solve by itself. My comment there was meant to say that it's a problem that originates on Hornby, can be solved on Hornby, but I do understand and know that we on Denman have to be part of accepting that solution and understanding how it's going to work. And we can't make it work if there's a will to, but I don't think the will is there. So the last thing I want to say is that when we talked about this at our last residents meeting, and somebody said, well, if it's a real problem, tell them to come over and they can stay the night and then we'll get them on the ferry. And that's the bottom line.
Don't stay on Denman overnight. When I go to Fannie Mae, so it doesn't happen.
Let's stick to the... Okay. Let's not have a discussion. Okay. I just want to do the main points everybody's got, and I've got all the main points on the table, we can discuss them.
Okay, I've talked to a lot of people, and what I see is, if it's a designated lane, which has just whoever shows up, RVs, just so they came from Hornby, the first X number that managed to make it, I can't imagine who would police this and who would take care of that. If it's a reservation lane of some kind that is designated by through the doctor's pink slips or whatever, then I still don't know who's going to administer it. Like the staff would have to be trained to vet the people as they come, or perhaps Hornby could. As they get on Hornby, and they're all the first 5 cars because they need to go, the staff there can decide if indeed they think this is their job. If he could call the captain and say, I got 6 medical certificates this morning that are having surgery at 9:30. They need to get on board, and then that would be accommodated by the Denman Ferry. But to have it just be a lane that fills up with the first 10 people, 5 people, 20 people, that leaves it also open to abuse, because occasional users use our ferry too. They are not easy to get out of that lane, you know. There's been arguments, you know, people come down and they think they can get in line, and there's, 60 cars up the hill. They're occasional users. They can't be expected to have the same compassion we do. So I can't see how it would be administered or policed. And if we're going to try to give this job to the ferry crew, that's really, they don't do that now. I can't see why they would want to do it in the future. And perhaps that could be adopted and they could be trained to look at a private medical certificate, or the captain could be and give them a blank card with none of their personal details, but to give them a space. But there's privacy issues involved in that. So the people I talked to said medical purposes, if there are valid medical purposes, they have a pig slip from the doctor, or even if it doesn't qualify as a travel then they can still go to the doctor and get a permission from Mommie, you know. So that's two methods.
Yeah, I think you commiserate with those people, but it's a matter of how the hell you implement that. You got 20 cars coming off Hornby, one got a pink slip. How does that person get in? You know, they may say, okay, we'll reserve the past, we'll load up and leave 5 spots for the medical emergencies in Hornby. Well, how do they know which ones it's going to be? It's an implementation problem.
I agree.
And I think based on these data that have been distributed, for the most part, it's a perceived problem. It's going to happen once in a while, and just like we all get inconvenienced once in a while by the 8,000 people who go over to Hornby every weekend or something like that. So I don't see how it can be practically implemented.
Tony, you going to speak to it?
Okay. I also think it's the right thing to do. I agree that we share the ferries, and I think sharing is complicated and worthwhile. And I think it does come down to, it doesn't come down to comparing who has more inconvenience because of the other group and all of that. I don't think that we can really get into that and try and make some big picture where we weigh out how annoying it is that we're stuck behind trailers with how annoying it is that there's traffic and the Hornby people having to wait. Like, we can't put everything on a scale and try and make complete justice, but I think in this case we do need to look at, for me, the basic principle is on Denman, if it's something really important, we have the option of sucking it up and getting super early to the ferry terminal, and with our kids in our arms and our coffees and waiting there, and we know we'll get on. And for that particular sailing, and it's the only one, other than the ones that Hornby has no access to, Hornby doesn't have that. It is such an important sailing, and I think that we should provide some level of that, and I just think it's the right thing to do, and it may be unpopular on Denman to say that, and it's an election year and everything, but I believe it. And you know, people talk about the medical emergencies, but I have family and friends on Hornby, so maybe I see it differently and I know what their life is like. And I also know what would happen if someone said to me, that people say all the time, well, you could just stay on the other side then. Your kid has an early morning hockey practice, and just stay on the other side. Are you kidding? Like, I have to pack up stuff for me, for my kid. I have to find someone to walk my dog, to water my plants. I have to rearrange this. I have to have someone to pick up the other kid. Like, it's not like, oh, they can just stay on Denman. Like, it just, we all know that living in ferry dependent communities is complicated. So anyway, I'll get to the point. I think that it's not just medical emergencies. It could be, and I've known this, it could be travel plans, it could be court dates, it could be your kid, it has a special educational designation and needs to get to a program once a week in Courtney, and it's going to be late anyways because it starts at 8:30, but at least they won't be very late, and they're stressed about going on. Like, these things really happen regularly. It could be a really important work or business appointment. There are many things, and there's no option for Hornby Islanders other than coming and staying on Denman or staying in Courtney, which is not always feasible, you know. And so I think it's the right thing to do. I think it happens very rarely, and I'm really glad to hear that. So my question is, when it does happen on those rare moments, do we share that inconvenience with Hornby, or do we say, well, the few times it happens, the Hornby people are going to be stuck, so they can never feel they rely on it, or that we share that inconvenience equally? And I think we should. I think that implementation is primarily BC Ferry's job, but I do think that we have a role to play, because when they don't implement something well, we should have input into that, and we do. You know, we're going to talk about the shuttling sign because they didn't implement it well. So I think we should be interested in implementation. I'd like to hear from them what to do. I think that we should provide some way of doing this. I don't think it should be 25. I actually don't think that's fair, because 25 Denman Islanders are not assured of a space on that ferry, and that just seems way too much also just for public perception. I'd go more with like 10. And I don't think that we can work with a system where it's being evaluated. How important is it? You know, is it your kid? Is it you? Are you going in to support a person who's having an operation but it's not in their family? Like, how can we judge that? Whose job would that be? That sounds kind of crazy. I think it's got to be the first, let's say, 10 cars, and we live with the fact that some of them won't, you know, quote unquote deserve it, or won't. It's not about deserving, sorry, but you know what I mean. Some of them may not be the ones this is targeted at. If you do have to go early for it, it's going to weed out a lot of people, and it will provide that option. I don't think 10 or 12 is too many, and it would happen so rarely that we would hardly notice it. I'm finished, thank you.
Well, I am taking an incredibly opposite tact on that. For one thing, I don't see it as an emergency at all, because these things are things that people plan for the night before. The historical perspective is that we have had a ferry system with the 8 o'clock ferry forever as being the first Hornby ferry, and somehow we've survived for at least my 32 years on the island. So I don't see it as emergencies at all. It's something you plan for. When I had an operation at St. Joseph's, we went in the night before I stayed in town, right? So it's things you know are coming up. You know you really want to catch that ferry, right? So you've got to do something about it. That's called a personal responsibility. Moral suasion about fairness in the world. That's good. I'm not guaranteed anything on the big ferries going down there. Luckily, because the ferries are so poorly run these years, that there's lots of space for me on the ferries, usually in Victoria. To have any idea that someone's going to police this on our side, we are going to a cable ferry with perhaps 3 or 4 crewmen. There's not going to be no policing down there whatsoever. I find it divisive. I think this idea coming up is just saying, you're from Hornby, you're from Denman. I think it's terribly divisive. I don't like it at all. I think we have a precedent with a whole history of it. I don't think it's for hockey players. I don't think it's for anything trivial. You've got a big problem, you think ahead. You do something about it, right? I'm flying out of Vancouver, and I know I've got to get there in the morning. I'm pretty worried about catching a ferry, right? I might stay with relatives in Vancouver or something like that.
Dennis, I'd really appreciate you not bringing judgments into the table.
Which phrase?
Divisive. I think it's been difficult for Hornby members to bring this forward, knowing how difficult it is for Denman community. We have not done it with any divisive intent.
Excuse me.
We have just tried to honour what we've heard from our community and represent it.
That's fine. I agree with you. I also agree with my...
I'd like to say we haven't come to bring this to the table with the spirit of divisiveness, but just to represent our community.
Excuse me. I am making an observation that I think it's a divisive issue. I mean, to me, I don't think you have the right to kind of come down and quantify or qualify my statement that way. Do you not think it's a divisive issue?
I said the issue is divisive. I want to make it clear.
I'm just saying
I'm just saying we have not brought it to a table with any divisive intent.
Oh, I didn't say anything about intent.
Well,
I'm talking about reality.
Okay, let's
move
get on
forward.
with
It's
this.
all right. Sorry. I'll end on that point.
Okay.
I apologize if I've offended you. I do not see you as being a divisive person, and I think the issue is divisive. Okay? Can you see that from my point?
Well, obviously I can hear it by the way people are speaking to it. So